The meeting room on Harmony Prime Space Station was huge. 12 different alien species sat around a curved table that looked like it could hold a small city. Each species had their own special chair made for their body type. The Altarians needed extra height for their long necks. The Corvin needed thick padding for their rock-like skin. The Zephyrite floated in small energy fields since they had no solid bodies. Counselor Velthari stood at the front of the room. She was Altarian, tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to glow under the station lights. Her forearms moved as she talked, making gestures that meant different things in her culture. She had been running these meetings for over 50 years. Today we discuss the monthly threat report, Velthari said in her musical voice. The translation devices built into the table turned her words into sounds each species could understand. We have several new developments across the galaxy. Captain Jiwan sat in the human section of the table. She was still getting used to these meetings. Humans had only joined the galactic community 3 years ago. Before that, nobody even knew Earth existed. Now humans had a small voice in galactic politics, though most species still treated them like curious children. Jiwan looked around the room. The other species had been exploring space for thousands of years. Some had been traveling between stars since before humans learned to make fire. Their technology was so advanced, it might as well be magic. Their ships could cross the galaxy in days. They could build planets from nothing. They had solved problems humans were still trying to understand. Next to Jiwan sat Dr. Minho. He was a scientist who studied alien life forms. He had joined the human space program because he wanted to learn about creatures from other worlds. So far, he had cataloged over 200 new species. His notebook was always full of drawings and notes about strange alien biology. Commander Hyeju sat on Jiwan's other side. She was military, trained to protect human interests in space. She wore a simple gray uniform with small patches showing her rank. Her job was to make sure other species understood that humans could defend themselves if needed. Most aliens thought this was funny since human weapons seemed so primitive. Velthari touched a control panel. A huge hologram appeared above the table. It showed a star map with thousands of colored dots representing different threats across the galaxy. Green dots meant safe areas. Yellow meant minor problems. Red dots showed serious dangers that required attention. The Corvin rebellion in the outer spiral has been contained, Velthari reported. No further action needed. The plasma storms near Rigel have calmed down. Trade routes are open again. The dimensional rifts in the Vega system are stable and being monitored. She moved through the list quickly. Each problem sounded huge to Jiwan, but the aliens talked about them like they were everyday issues. Wars that could destroy solar systems were just minor conflicts. Natural disasters that could kill billions were weather patterns. It made Jiwan realize how much humans still had to learn. Now we come to a more serious matter, Velthari said. The hologram changed to show a single star system. Long-range sensors have detected movement in the Kepler 442 system. A void kraken has awakened. The room went quiet. Even species that never showed emotion seemed nervous. The floating Zephyrite dimmed their natural light. The crystal-based quartz beings made soft ringing sounds that meant worry. Dr. Minho leaned forward. "What's a void kraken?" he asked. Several aliens made sounds that could have been laughter or crying. It was hard to tell with universal translators. Counselor Grixtar, who looked like a walking tree with too many eyes, answered. Void krakens are ancient creatures. They live in space between stars. They are bigger than most moons. When they wake up, they eat everything in their path. Ships, planets, space stations, nothing can stop them. How do you usually handle them? Commander Hyeju asked. We evacuate the system, Velthari said. Set up warning beacons 50 light-years away. Wait for the creature to go back to sleep. Usually takes 200 or 300 years. G1 blinked. You just leave? For hundreds of years? It is the only safe option, said Counselor Thexmore, whose blue fur was standing up in what humans had learned meant stress. Void krakens have been recorded for over 10 million years. No weapon can hurt them. No strategy can defeat them. They are forces of nature like black holes or supernovas. The hologram showed the damage report. The Void Kraken had already destroyed 2 automated mining platforms. Each platform was the size of a small city. The creature had eaten them like snacks. Now it was moving toward colonies with millions of people. The evacuation will begin immediately, Velthari announced. All ships in the area have been warned. We estimate 3 days to clear the civilian population. Military vessels will establish the quarantine zone. Dr. Minho was taking notes, drawing what he thought a Void Kraken might look like. Has anyone ever tried to study one up close? He asked. The room went even quieter. A few aliens made choking sounds. Study them? Counselor. Velthari's forearms stopped moving. Young human, getting close to a Void Kraken means death. They generate fields that destroy any technology. They move through space faster than most ships. They are older than civilization itself. But you must have some data, Minho pressed. Sensor readings, observations, something. Only from very long distances, admitted Grixtar. No one has ever gotten closer than 1 light year and survived to report back. Jiwan looked at the hologram showing the Kepler system. Millions of people were packing up their lives to run from one creature. Entire worlds would be abandoned. Centuries of development would be lost. It seemed like such a waste. What if we just dealt with it? She said. The aliens stopped talking. Commander Hyeju put her face in her hands. Dr. Minho looked up from his notebook with interest. Then the laughter started. Not mean laughter, but the kind adults make when children say something cute and impossible. The Altarians made bell-like sounds. The Corvin rumbled like distant thunder. Even the serious quartz beings chimed in musical tones. Dear Captain Jiwan, Velthari said with what humans had learned was alien kindness. We understand your species is young and eager. But some things cannot be fought. Some problems have no solutions. Void Krakens are facts of the universe, like gravity or time. We do not deal with black holes. We do not fix supernovas. We adapt and survive. Jiwan nodded as if she understood, but her expression didn't change. She looked at the hologram again, studying the creature's projected path. Her fingers tapped on the table in a rhythm that Commander Hyeju recognized. It was the same pattern Jiwan used when she was solving problems. Right, Jiwan said finally. Makes sense. Very reasonable. She stood up and reached for the water bottle she had brought to the meeting. Commander Hyeju, hold my drink. I need to make some calls. The room went quiet again, but this time it felt different. Dr. Minho was grinning. Commander Hyeju was already reaching for her communication device. Captain Jiwan walked toward the door with the confident step of someone who had just decided to do something that would probably get her in trouble. Counselor Velthari watched the humans leave. In her 50 years of running threat assessment meetings, she had never seen anyone react to a Void Kraken report by asking to make phone calls. She was starting to wonder if the human threat level classification might need to be reviewed. Outside the meeting room, alarms were already beginning to sound as evacuation orders went out across the Kepler system, but in the human section of Harmony Prime, different alarms were starting to ring. The kind that meant someone was calling for backup. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humans. They didn't like being told that problems couldn't be solved. They especially didn't like being told to run away. And they had a lot of friends with very interesting ideas about pest control. The research ship Soul's Pride looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels that filled space around Harmony Prime. It was built like a flying brick with too many antennas and sensor arrays stuck on every surface. The hull was covered in patches, where new equipment had been welded on during the 3-year journey to join galactic civilization. Humans were still figuring out how to build proper spaceships. Dr. Minho stood on the bridge watching the main screen. The void. Kraken was there, a dark shape against the stars that was hard to look at directly. It seemed to bend light around itself, making space look twisted and wrong. Even from 50,000 kilometers away, the creature made the ship's instruments act strange. Most species consider this distance suicidal, said Dr. Unji from her station. She was the ship's marine biologist, though she spent most of her time studying life forms that had never seen an ocean. Right now, she was running scans that were probably illegal in 12 different star systems. Most species are boring, replied Engineer Dongwu. He was supposed to maintain the ship's weapons, but he spent most of his time trying to improve them. His workbench was covered in alien technology he had borrowed from supply depots. These readings are amazing. Look at this. Energy output. Pilot Sora was at the helm, keeping the ship steady despite gravitational fields that shouldn't exist. She had learned to fly in Earth's atmosphere, dodging missiles and asteroids. Flying near impossible space monsters was just Tuesday for her. "Want me to get closer?" she asked. "Gods, no," said Captain Park, the ship's commander. "We're already close enough that half the galaxy thinks we're insane. Let's not prove them right on the first day." Dr. Minho was taking notes in his tablet, sketching what he saw through the view screen. The Void Kraken was huge, easily the size of Earth's moon. Its body was dark and smooth, covered in what looked like bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with their own light. Long tentacles drifted around it like living cables, each one thick enough to wrap around a city. "It's beautiful," Yunji said softly. "And completely impossible. Nothing that large should be able to move through space. The energy requirements alone should collapse it into a black hole." "Maybe it uses the same technology as the alien ships," Dongwu suggested. "Some kind of space-folding drive." "No," Minho said, still sketching. "This is biological. Look at the way those tentacles move. That's muscle tissue, not machinery. And those light patterns. They look like nerve impulses." The creature was feeding on the remains of the mining platforms it had destroyed. The tentacles, wrapped around chunks of metal and machinery, pulling them toward what might have been a mouth. The bioluminescent patterns flashed brighter each time it ate something. "It's like a whale," Yunji said suddenly. "A space whale that eats industrial equipment instead of krill." "Whales don't make gravity fields," Sora pointed out. "Earth whales don't," Yunji corrected. "But what if this is just how life evolved in deep space? What if void krakens are just animals that adapted to live between stars?" Minho looked up from his notes. "That would explain why they go dormant for so long. They're hibernating between meals. The mining equipment woke this one up because it detected the electromagnetic signatures of food." Dongwu was running calculations on his tablet. "If it's biological, it has weak points. Nerve centers, vital organs, structural limitations, nothing lives forever, and everything can be killed if you know how." Captain Park looked nervous. "We're here to study it, not fight it. Our orders were very clear about that." "Studying and fighting aren't that different," Sora said. "Both involve getting close to things that want to kill you and figuring out how they work." The comm system crackled to life. "Soul's Pride, this is Harmony Prime Control. Please acknowledge." Captain Park activated the reply channel. "This is Soul's Pride, go ahead, Control." "Soul's Pride, we're reading your position as 50,000 kilometers from the Void Kraken. Please confirm this is an error in our tracking systems." Park looked around the bridge. Everyone was pretending to be very interested in their instruments. "No error, Control. We're conducting scientific research." There was a long pause. "Soul's Pride, be advised that your current position violates 17 different safety regulations and 3 separate peace treaties. You are requested to withdraw to minimum safe distance immediately." "What's minimum safe distance?" Sora asked. Another pause. 1 light year. "That seems excessive," Yunji said. "We can barely get decent sensor readings from here." "Soul's Pride, this is not a negotiation. Withdraw immediately or we will be forced to report this incident to the Galactic Safety Council." Park sighed and reached for the comm. But before he could respond, Minho grabbed his arm. "Wait," Minho said. "Ask them how much data they have on Void Krakens." Park looked confused but keyed the comm anyway. "Control, how much scientific data does the galactic community have on these creatures?" "Soul's Pride, that information is not relevant to your immediate safety." "Humor us," Yunji added, leaning toward the comm. Another long pause. "Soul's Pride, current data consists of long-range sensor readings and historical attack reports. No detailed biological studies have ever been conducted due to obvious safety concerns. The bridge crew looked at each other. Dongwu started grinning. So, what you're saying, Sora said slowly, is that nobody has ever actually studied one of these things up close. Soul's pride, that is correct. Now please withdraw to safe distance. But how do you know they're unstoppable if no one has ever really tried to stop them? Minho asked. The comm went quiet for a full minute. When the voice came back, it sounded tired. Soul's pride, void krakens have destroyed thousands of ships and consumed hundreds of worlds over millions of years. The evidence speaks for itself. Has anyone ever tried using biological weapons? Yunji asked. Targeted viruses, genetic modification disrupting their nervous systems? Has anyone tried precise kinetic strikes? Dongwu added, hitting specific weak points instead of just shooting at the whole thing? Has anyone tried asking them nicely to stop? Sora suggested. Everyone looked at her. What? We don't know. If they're intelligent or not. Captain Park was getting a headache. Control. We'll maintain safe distance and continue our research. Soul's pride out. He closed the comm channel and looked around the bridge. We're scientists, not warriors. Our job is to learn, not to fight ancient space monsters. Learning. And fighting aren't that different either, Dongwu said. Both involve understanding your target and exploiting weaknesses. Besides, Yunji added, look at it. It's just an animal. A very large, very unusual animal, but still just biology. And biology always has rules. Minho was back to taking notes, but now he was writing down numbers and calculations instead of just drawing pictures. Yunji's right. The light patterns are definitely neural activity. And look how the tentacles move. They're coordinated, but not perfectly. That suggests a decentralized nervous system, probably with major nodes at key points. Dongwu pulled up engineering schematics on his screen. If we could map those neural nodes, we could target them, disrupt the creature's coordination without having to destroy the whole thing. Sora was studying the navigation display. It's moving in a predictable pattern, following the debris trail from the mining platforms. If something was baiting it, with the right kind of electromagnetic signals. Captain Park realized his crew had stopped talking about studying the creature and started talking about hunting it. We are not going to attack a void kraken with one research ship and improvised weapons. Of course not, Minho said. That would be stupid. We'd need at least 3 ships, Yunji agreed. Maybe 4, depending on what kind of equipment we can get. And proper weapons, Dongwu added. Not just mining lasers and kinetic rounds. We'd need something designed for biological targets this size. Plus someone who actually knows how to fight space monsters, Sora concluded. Good thing Jiwon said she was making calls. Park's headache was getting worse. Jiwon said she was making calls to deal with the void kraken. She didn't say anything about us joining some kind of monster hunting expedition. The comm system activated. Again, but this time it wasn't Harmony Prime Control. It was Captain Jiwon's voice. Soul's pride, this is Captain Jiwon on the diplomatic channel. How's the research going? Minho grabbed the comm before Park could stop him. Jiwon, we've got incredible data. This thing is definitely biological, probably highly intelligent and definitely killable if you know what you're doing. Excellent, Jiwon replied. Because I just got off a call with Admiral Taehyung's fleet. They're very interested in your findings. Park felt something cold settle in his stomach. Admiral Taehyung? The one who specializes in impossible military operations? That's him, Jiwon said cheerfully. He should be arriving in about 6 hours with some very interesting equipment. Hope you don't mind company. Through the view screen, the void kraken continued feeding on the mining platform debris, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing peacefully. It had no idea that its existence had just become a human engineering problem. And humans were very good at solving engineering problems, especially the kind that involved things other people said couldn't be solved. Somewhere in the depths of space, Admiral Taehyung's fleet was already changing course toward Kepler 442. The galaxy was about to get its first demonstration. Commander Hyeju watched the human fleet arrive through the observation deck of Harmony Prime. What she saw made her both proud and deeply worried. Admiral Tae-hyung had not come alone. The first ship was the Busan's Hammer, and it was ugly in the way that only human military technology could be ugly. It looked like someone had taken a city-sized brick and covered it with weapons that definitely hadn't been there when the ship left Earth. Strange energy readings were coming from its hull that made nearby alien ships drift away nervously. Behind, it came 3 converted mining vessels. These had started life as industrial ships designed to strip asteroids for useful metals. Now they bristled with plasma cutters that could slice through solid rock like butter. Their cargo holds had been filled with what Admiral Tae-hyung cheerfully called experimental ammunition. 2 military frigates flanked the formation. These were proper warships, built to fight other ships in normal space battles. What made them unusual was the collection of devices welded to their hulls that no human engineer was willing to explain in detail. When pressed, they would only say the modifications were probably safe and mostly tested. Admiral Tae-hyung himself was exactly what Hyeju had expected. He was a short, energetic man who smiled too much when talking about things that should terrify normal people. He had earned his rank by volunteering for missions that other officers called impossible, and then completing them in ways that made the enemy surrender out of pure confusion. "Commander Hyeju," Tae-hyung said as he boarded the station. "Excellent work getting us detailed intelligence on the target. My engineers are very excited to test some theories." "What kind of theories?" Hyeju asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "Well, Dr. Minho's biological analysis suggests the creature has a decentralized nervous system. Chief Engineer Neon thinks we can disrupt it with coordinated electromagnetic pulses. And Corporal Jin Woo has volunteered to lead a boarding party to plant charges directly on the neural nodes." Hyeju stared at him. "A boarding party? You want to put people inside a void kraken?" "Not inside," Tae-hyung corrected. "On the surface, big difference, much safer." Before Hyeju could explain why this wasn't actually safer, alarms started ringing throughout the station. The main display screens lit up with priority messages from across the galaxy. Counselor Velthari's voice echoed through the station's comm system. "All personnel report to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Unknown human fleet has been detected approaching the Kepler system with hostile intent." "Hostile intent?" Tae-hyung looked genuinely hurt. "We're here to help. How is helping hostile?" The main briefing room was chaos when they arrived. Alien representatives were talking over each other in at least 6 different languages. The translation system was struggling to keep up. Display screens showed tactical readouts of the human fleet, and the numbers were making everyone nervous. "Order, order," Velthari called, her forearms waving for attention. "We have confirmed reports that human military vessels are approaching the Void Kraken at combat speed. This violates every safety protocol in galactic law." Counselor Grixtar, the tree-like being with too many eyes, was practically vibrating with anxiety. "They're going to get themselves killed and probably make the creature angry in the process. When void krakens are agitated, they become even more dangerous." "How much more dangerous?" asked Admiral Tae-hyung, who had somehow gotten into the secure briefing room without anyone noticing. The aliens turned to stare at him. Several made sounds that the translators couldn't interpret, but were probably not compliments. "Admiral Tae-hyung," Velthari said carefully, "what exactly are your intentions regarding the Void Kraken?" "We're going to kill it," Tae-hyung said simply. Seemed obvious. The room went completely silent. Even the background hum of the station's systems seemed to pause. "Kill it?" Counselor Thexmore's blue fur was standing straight up. "Admiral, with respect, that's impossible. Void Krakens have survived everything the galaxy has thrown at them for millions of years." "Sure," Tae-hyung agreed, "but the galaxy never threw humans at one before." Chief Engineer Neon had joined them somehow. She was a small woman who designed weapons that made other species file formal complaints with the Galactic Safety Council. Right now she was holding a tablet covered in diagrams that looked like they violated several laws of physics. "Admiral," she said, "the target analysis is complete. Dr. Minho was right about the nervous system. I count at least 12 major neural nodes plus the primary brain structure near what we think is the head. Coordinated strikes should be able to sever the connections and paralyze the creature. Excellent, Taehyung said. What's the attack plan? First wave uses the mining ships to get close and map the exact locations. Their industrial sensors can penetrate the creature's biofield. Second wave has the frigates hit the neural nodes with kinetic strikes while the creature is confused. Third wave brings in the hammer for the finishing blow. What does the hammer do exactly? Velthari asked. Nyan and Taehyung looked at each other. We're not entirely sure, Nyan admitted. It's experimental, but it should be very effective against large biological targets. Should be? Grickstar's many eyes were all focused on her. You don't know? We know it works, Taehyung said. We tested it on some asteroids. Very impressive results. Completely vaporized them. You tested an experimental weapon on asteroids and now you want to use it on a living creature? The asteroids were really big asteroids, Nayeon offered helpfully. Corporal Jinwoo had also appeared. He was young, enthusiastic, and wearing armor that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought normal spacesuits were too safe. Admiral, the boarding team is ready. We've got shape charges, neural disruptors, and emergency evacuation gear. Boarding team? Velthari's voice was getting higher. You actually plan to put soldiers on the creature? Just for a few minutes, Jinwoo said. Long enough to plant the charges and get sensor readings. Should be fun. Pilot Sora's voice came over the comm system. Admiral, we're in position and ready to begin. The creature is still feeding on debris, so it should be relatively calm. Perfect time to start mapping runs. Through the station's view screen, they could see the human fleet spreading out around the Void Kraken. The alien evacuation ships were pulling back to what they considered minimum safe distance, but the human ships were moving closer. Much closer. This is madness, Thexmore said. The creature will destroy them all. Maybe, Taehyung admitted, but if it doesn't, we'll have solved a problem that's been bothering the galaxy for millions of years. Seems worth the risk. The comm system activated with priority alerts from across the galaxy. Other species were demanding explanations. Military fleets were changing course to observe from safe distances. News networks were broadcasting emergency warnings about the human incident in the Kepler system. Admiral, Velthari said desperately, if you proceed with this attack and fail, the creature may become permanently aggressive. It could threaten systems across the entire galaxy. And if we succeed, that's impossible. We'll find out in about 30 minutes, Taehyung said cheerfully. Sora's starting her mapping runs now. On the main display, they could see one of the mining ships approaching the Void Kraken. It was moving at a speed that made the alien observers make worried noises. The ship was close enough that the creature's tentacles could have reached out and crushed it easily. But the Void, Kraken didn't seem to notice. It continued feeding peacefully, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing in slow hypnotic rhythms. The tentacles drifted through space like gentle currents, occasionally grabbing pieces of debris to consume. First mapping run complete, Sora reported. The creature is definitely biological and surprisingly predictable. Neural patterns match Dr. Minho's analysis. We've identified targets for the kinetic strikes. Begin Phase 2, Taehyung ordered. The frigates moved into position. Their modified weapon systems were charging with energy readings that made nearby space distort visibly. Whatever they were planning to shoot was not standard military equipment. Admiral, Commander Hyeju said quietly, are you sure about this? Once we start shooting, there's no going back. Taehyung looked at the display showing the massive creature floating peacefully among the stars. It was beautiful in an alien way, ancient and mysterious and completely impossible. Hyeju, he said, someone has to be first. For millions of years, the galaxy has been running away from these things. Maybe it's time someone tried running toward one instead. He activated the fleet comm. All ships, this is Admiral Taehyung. Target is locked. Weapons are hot. Remember, we're not just fighting for the colonies in this system. We're fighting for every world that's ever been evacuated. Every civilization that's ever had to abandon their homes and wait centuries for the all clear. The void kraken pulsed with soft light, unaware that its millions of years of peaceful existence were about to end. "Fire when ready," Taehyung ordered. The galaxy held its breath. The first kinetic strikes hit the void kraken exactly where Dr. Minho had predicted the neural nodes would be. Chunks of hardened metal traveling at impossible speeds punched through the creature's bioluminescent skin. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The creature's peaceful pulsing lights erupted into chaotic flashes. Its massive tentacles whipped through space in patterns that had no coordination or purpose. A sound that might have been screaming echoed through space, picked up by the human ship's audio sensors. It was a sound that had probably never been heard before, because no void kraken had ever been heard enough to make it. "Direct hits on all 12 neural nodes," reported Chief Engineer Nayeon from her position aboard the Busan's hammer. "Creature is showing signs of nervous system disruption. Neural coordination is down by 70%. Admiral Taehyung watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Phase 3. Jinwoo, you're clear for boarding." The boarding shuttle was a modified mining pod that looked like it had been built by someone who thought safety regulations were suggestions. Corporal Jinwoo piloted it himself, diving through the chaotic whipping tentacles with the kind of precision that came from spending too much time in asteroid fields. Across the galaxy, alien observers watched in horror as humans actually landed on the surface of a void kraken. The boarding party consisted of 5 soldiers wearing armor that had been designed for mining asteroids, not fighting ancient space monsters. They moved across the creature's surface with magnetic boots, planting shaped charges on what their scanners indicated were major nerve clusters. "This is impossible," Counselor Velthari said for the 10th time. She was watching the live feed from Harmony Prime's main display. "They're walking around on its skin like it's a normal asteroid. Maybe it is just a normal asteroid," suggested Dr. Seok-jin, a human xenoarchaeologist who had joined the observation team. "A really big, really angry asteroid that happens to be alive." The void kraken was trying to shake off the boarding party, but its coordination was too damaged. Its tentacles moved randomly, sometimes hitting its own body. The bioluminescent patterns were flashing in what looked like pain responses. "Charges place," Jinwoo reported. "Recommend immediate extraction before it figures out how to use its remaining neural pathways." The boarding shuttle lifted off just as the shaped charges detonated. Bright flashes erupted across the creature's surface. More of that impossible screaming sound echoed through space. The void kraken's movements became even more erratic. "Neural activity is down to 30%, Nayeon reported. Creature is severely impaired but still dangerous. Ready for final phase." Admiral Taehyung looked at the readings from the Busan's hammer. The experimental weapon was fully charged and ready to fire. Nobody was entirely sure what would happen when they used it, but the computer models were promising. "All ships withdraw to minimum safe distance," he ordered. "We're going to find out what the hammer actually does." The other human ships pulled back, but their version of minimum safe distance was still closer than most alien species would get to a healthy void kraken. The Busan's hammer moved into position, its strange weapon systems casting weird shadows in space. "Weapon charged and ready," Nayeon announced. "Target locked. This is either going to be really impressive or really embarrassing." "Fire," Taehyung ordered. What came out of the hammer wasn't exactly a projectile and wasn't exactly an energy beam. It was something that made space itself seem to twist around it. When it hit the void kraken, reality appeared to hiccup. The creature simply stopped, existing for a moment, then it came back but wrong. Parts of it were transparent. Other parts seemed to be folded in directions that didn't make sense. The bioluminescent patterns flickered once, twice, and then went dark forever. The void kraken was dead. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that happens when everyone is trying to process something impossible. Even the ship system seemed quieter, as if the universe itself was taking a moment to understand what had just happened. "Target eliminated," Nayeon said finally. "Whatever that weapon does, it definitely works on large biological targets." Across the galaxy, emergency sessions were being called. The Galactic Threat Assessment Council was trying to understand how humans had killed something that was supposed to be immortal. Military analysts were reviewing the footage and filing reports that nobody would believe. But the humans weren't finished. "Sora," Admiral Taehyung said, "scan for more of them." "More what?" Pilot Sora asked from her mining ship. "More void krakens. If there's one in this sector, there are probably others nearby." The long-range sensors painted a picture that made everyone on the human ships smile, and everyone watching from other species' ships feel sick. There weren't just more void krakens in the sector. There were 17 of them, scattered across a dozen star systems. "Well," Taehyung said cheerfully, "we've got the technique down now. Should be able to clean up the whole sector in a couple of weeks." What followed was exactly what Taehyung had predicted. The humans treated the ancient, immortal, impossible-to-kill void krakens like a pest control problem. They developed efficient tactics. They improved their weapons. They streamlined the process until they could eliminate a void kraken in under 2 hours from first contact to confirmed kill. Dr. Yoonji published regular updates on the biological studies. Each dead void kraken provided more data about their anatomy, their behavior, and their weaknesses. She discovered that the creatures were actually quite fragile once you understood their biology. Their reputation for invincibility came from the fact that no one had ever tried to study them properly. Engineer Dongwoo improved the weapon systems with each battle. The kinetic strikes became more precise. The neural disruptors became more effective. Even the experimental weapon on the Busan's hammer was upgraded to be more reliable and considerably more destructive. Corporal Jinwoo led boarding parties on 7 different void krakens. Each time, he and his team learned better ways to place charges and gather intelligence. What had started as a desperate improvisation became a routine military operation. By the end of 3 weeks, there were no more void krakens in the sector. The Galactic community watched this systematic elimination with growing alarm. Problems that had existed since before recorded history were being solved by humans who treated ancient cosmic horrors like maintenance issues. Dr. Seokjin made the discovery that changed everything. While studying the remains of the first void kraken, he found evidence that the creatures had actually been in hibernation when the mining platforms woke them up. They hadn't been actively hunting or feeding. They had been sleeping. Most of the historical attacks happened near industrial operations, he explained to a very quiet alien audience. The electromagnetic signatures from mining, construction, or heavy manufacturing would wake them up. Then they'd feed on the industrial equipment and go back to sleep. You're saying, Counselor Velthari asked slowly, that these creatures were never actually hunting civilizations? They were just responding to artificial signals that mimicked their natural food sources? Exactly. And since everyone always evacuated immediately, no one ever tried to understand their behavior patterns. They just assumed the creatures were unstoppable forces of nature. The implications were staggering. Millions of worlds had been abandoned over the centuries. Entire civilizations had been displaced. Countless resources had been lost to creatures that were, essentially, very large animals responding to what they thought was food. Admiral Taehyung was reviewing the sector maps when Captain Yuna contacted him from her transport ship. She was bringing in the cleanup crews to salvage useful materials from the dead void krakens. "Admiral," she said, "we're getting requests from 17 different star systems. They want to know if we can help them with other impossible problems." Taehyung looked at the list. Quantum storms that disrupted trade routes, unstable stars that threatened entire worlds, dimensional rifts that had been growing for centuries, ancient automated defense systems that shot at anything that moved, space-dwelling predators that made shipping dangerous. Each problem had been accepted as an unavoidable fact of life. Each one had solutions that no one had ever tried because they seemed too dangerous or too difficult. "Send replies to all requests," Taehyung ordered. "Tell them we're currently expanding our operations and will be happy to provide consulting services for problems that other species consider unsolvable." He paused, thinking about the phrase that Captain Jiwon had used back at Harmony Prime. "And remind them," he added, "that humans don't believe in problems that can't be fixed. We just believe in problems that haven't been fixed yet." The cleanup continued across the sector. Ancient menaces became salvage operations. Cosmic horrors became case studies. Impossible problems became engineering challenges with interesting solutions. And somewhere in the depths of space, automated systems were quietly upgrading humanity's threat level classification. Again. The galaxy was learning that humans had a very different relationship with the word impossible than everyone else. For most species, impossible meant don't try. For humans, impossible meant try harder. It was a lesson the galaxy would remember for a very long time. 6 months after the Void Kraken incident, Harmony Prime looked very different. The human section had expanded to include 3 new docking bays and a department that hadn't existed before, the Galactic Problem Resolution Office. Director Hyun ran it with the efficiency of someone who had spent years making impossible things happen on schedule. The office walls were covered with star charts marked in different colors. Green meant problem solved. Yellow meant work in progress. Red meant really interesting challenge. There were a lot more green markers than there had been 6 months ago. General Woo-sung sat in the main conference room reviewing requests. He was military, but his job had evolved from fighting wars to something more like cosmic maintenance. The latest batch of requests included a sentient nebula that was eating solar systems, an ancient AI that had decided to redecorate several planets without permission, and something called a reality storm that was making physics work differently in 12 star systems. The Corvin Collective wants help with their quantum storms, he said to his assistant. Says the storms have been disrupting trade for 3,000 years, but they heard we might have ideas. Standard consultation fee? Asked Lieutenant Borum, who kept track of the paperwork. Double rate for quantum phenomena, Woo-sung replied. And we'll need Dr. Minho's team for the biological analysis. Some of these storms might actually be living creatures. Ambassador Ji-young was in the next office, taking calls from species that had previously considered humans too primitive to notice. Now everyone wanted to hire human consultants for their impossible problems. She had learned to smile politely, while alien leaders explained disasters that had plagued them for centuries, then suggest practical solutions that no one had ever tried. The Vegan Republic is having trouble with their sun, she told Director Hyun during their daily briefing. It's become unstable and keeps changing colors. Their scientists say it will explode in about 50 years. Unstable how? Hyun asked, making notes. Apparently it's not actually their original sun. Their ancestors moved their entire solar system to escape a galactic war, but they had to use an artificial star. The technology is failing after 2 million years. Hyun looked up from her notes. They moved their entire solar system? That's what they said. Very advanced civilization. But they never learned how to fix their artificial sun because the original engineers died in the war. And they want us to fix a 2-million-year-old artificial star? They're willing to pay very well. Hyun made more notes. Put them on the list. We'll need Engineer Dongwoo's team and probably Admiral Tae-hyung for the heavy equipment. Might be a good test case for the new stellar engineering protocols. The requests kept coming. Problems that had been accepted as facts of nature were being reclassified as engineering challenges. Ancient curses were turning out to be malfunctioning technology. Cosmic horrors were revealing themselves to be misunderstood alien wildlife. Impossible disasters were becoming routine maintenance calls. The Galactic Threat Assessment Council had given up trying to classify human activities. Every month, the humans would solve another impossible problem, usually in ways that made other species question their understanding of physics. The threat level classifications had been revised so many times that they had finally created a new category specifically for humanity. Counselor Velthari was reviewing the latest reports when Captain Jiwon arrived for their weekly meeting. Jiwon had been promoted to Admiral after the Void Kraken's success, but she still preferred to handle the diplomatic side of human problem-solving operations. Admiral Jiwon, Velthari said, I've been reviewing your people's activities over the past 6 months. The results are unprecedented. Jiwon settled into her chair with the casual confidence of someone who had gotten used to making the impossible look routine. We've been busy, she agreed. Good thing the galaxy had so many interesting problems to work on. 17 Void Krakens eliminated, 43 quantum storms neutralized, 6 unstable stars repaired. 2 ancient AI systems convinced to stop attacking trade ships. 1 sentient black hole negotiated into changing its orbit. And those are just the major incidents. The black hole was surprisingly reasonable once we figured out how to communicate with it, Jiwon said. Turns out it was just lonely and trying to get attention. Velthari looked at her notes again. Your species has solved more galactic-level problems in 6 months than most civilizations solve in their entire existence. The other council members are concerned. Concerned how? They're worried about what happens when you run out of problems to solve. Jiwon looked confused. Run out of problems? Have you looked at the galaxy lately? There are problems everywhere. We've barely gotten started. As if summoned by her words, the emergency alert system activated throughout the station. Priority. Signals were coming in from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Something new had been detected at the edge of the galaxy, something that was making the automated threat assessment systems produce error messages. The main briefing room filled quickly, with representatives from every major species. The central display showed long-range sensor readings from the galactic rim. What they saw made everyone except the humans look deeply worried. A massive energy signature was approaching from the direction of Andromeda. It was huge, bigger than most star systems, and it was consuming everything in its path. Entire solar systems were simply disappearing as it passed. The energy readings suggested something that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Preliminary analysis indicates an extra-dimensional entity. Counselor Grixtar reported, his many eyes fixed on the display. Origin unknown. Capabilities unknown. Threat level appears to be beyond our current classification system. How fast is it moving? Asked Counselor Thexmore, whose blue fur was already standing up in stress patterns. Current velocity suggests it will reach the outer colonies in approximately 18 months. At that rate, it could consume the entire galaxy within 50 years. The room erupted in panicked discussions. Emergency evacuation plans were being drafted. Deep space refugees were being considered. Some species were already talking about fleeing to other galaxies entirely. Admiral Jiwon was studying the sensor readings with interest, rather than fear. Has anyone tried talking to it? The room went quiet. I'm sorry? Velthari asked. Has anyone tried communicating with it? Maybe it's not hostile. Maybe it's just lost, or confused, or looking for something specific. Grixtar's many eyes focused on her. Admiral, this entity has consumed hundreds of star systems. The destruction appears to be total and indiscriminate. Maybe, Jiwon agreed. Or maybe it's trying to get our attention and this is the only way it knows how. Did anyone try to talk to the Void Krakens before we killed them? No, but did anyone try negotiating with the quantum storms before we fixed them? That's different, is it? Jiwon stood up and walked to the display. Every single problem we've solved in the past 6 months turned out to be simpler than everyone thought. Not easy, but simpler. What if this is the same thing? General Wu Sung had joined the briefing. What are you thinking, Admiral? I'm thinking. This sounds like the biggest problem-solving challenge we've had yet. She turned to face the assembled alien representatives. And I'm thinking it's time to find out what humans can do when we really put our minds to something. Velthari looked around the room at the expressions of her fellow council members. Fear, resignation, and the kind of despair that came from facing something truly impossible. Then she looked at the humans, who were already taking notes and sketching diagrams and looking excited about the challenge. Admiral Jiwon, she said carefully, are you suggesting that humanity will attempt to resolve this crisis as well? Not just humanity, Jiwon corrected. We'll need help from everyone. This is bigger than anything we've handled before. But yes, we're going to fix it. She walked over to the water bottle she had brought to the meeting and set it down on the conference table with a soft thud. General Wusung, hold my drink. I need to make some calls. The automated threat assessment systems throughout the galaxy suddenly activated emergency protocols. Humanity's threat level classification jumped to the maximum rating of 10, with new subcategories being created in real time. At the bottom of the classification, in small text that was already being distributed to every species in the galaxy, a new warning appeared. Threat level 10, Humanity. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not challenge. Do not dare them. Recommend immediate alliance and regular tribute of coffee and interesting problems to solve. As Admiral Jiwan began making her calls, mobilizing resources and expertise from across human space, the galaxy began to learn something new about their youngest members. When humans said they were going to fix something, they didn't just mean the immediate problem. They meant all the underlying issues, all the related complications, and usually several things that hadn't even been identified as problems yet. The extra-dimensional entity consuming solar systems in Andromeda had just become humanity's next engineering project. And somewhere in the depths of space, Admiral Taehyung's newest fleet was already changing course, loaded with experimental weapons that probably violated several laws of physics and definitely violated the treaty limiting the development of reality-altering